I think if you asked most people what do they struggle with the most, I think it'd be like consistency. I think
It's tough. Hey, Jake.
Hey,
How's it going?
good.
I feel like that's how we always start the podcast. How's it going? We have an interesting topic for everyone today. I think it's one that we'll have some really nice conversations about. And it's all around getting older.
Yeah, I remember we touched on that the last episode, like at the
Yes,
end.
That's right.
And I know for myself, I had to hold back not to like just jump in and just start going at it. But so I'm really excited for this episode. I have some good stuff.
Me too.
Yeah,
Me too.
yeah.
I think it'll be a good one. So your birthday's in February.
Yeah.
Mine is in August. And when we were off cam, I believe it was last time we saw each other, we said that we had a similar feeling this year. Like, and maybe I can permit myself and go ahead and interject. But I said, man, like, it's hitting me that I'm getting older. Like,
Yeah.
I feel it, you know? And you had told me you felt the same way, which was very interesting because we're both the same age.
Yeah.
You're just a couple months older than me.
I'm older.
You're older. And, it was interesting that it's at this age, which I don't know if we want to say our age or not, but it's not a milestone age. Like we didn't turn 30, we didn't turn 40.
I don't know.
What I mean?
It's like a random.
It's a random
like,
number.
Yeah.
We both felt it. The same
Random,
year.
like it's not even like your quarter life. It's nothing.
Yeah,
It's just
no,
like
exactly.
a random number. Nothing special around like a number in your 20s. It's just like okay. But I remember what I told you last time.
Yeah?
I said I think everyone reaches a certain age, and that age is different for everyone.
Yeah.
Where it just hits you, and you're like, shit, I'm getting older. Like this is and. It was the same age for us, obviously, and it's like, wow, you had that feeling too, and then you're
Totally.
like, yeah, I have that feeling too.
That's crazy. And
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting you to say you felt the same way, and then
Oh,
you
really?
did, and I was like, oh, wait a second, this is going to make for some interesting
Oh, I'm
content.
surprised it was a shock.
Yeah,
Oh,
because it's a random number.
Yeah, that's
Normally you
true.
hear that like someone's like 40, I'm going through a midlife crisis.
I know
right?
30s is hard for a lot of people.
Oh,
When they hit the 30, it's like, oof.
I'm not excited for. Well, no, I mean, look, it's part of life, right? But I just want to like go off topic just slightly. How we're keeping such a mystery around our age for being very
I know, right?
cryptic about
Should
it.
we just reveal it?
I mean, hey, it's fine. Up to you. Okay, we'll just leave.
We'll leave the mystery. Keep it
Okay.
going. Yeah.
Perfect. So, what are your thoughts? Like, what goes through your mind when you're thinking of getting older, and like, what are your feelings? Like, are they more positive? Are they more like negative? Like, where does your mind go initially when you think of that?
I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about getting older is it's always, I tell myself, mitigate risk. Or sorry, like mitigate regret, not risk.
Oh, mitigate regret.
Mitigate regret. It's like as you get older, right? You're realizing that like the time with certain people is limited. Like you have just a certain amount of time to do things, and like we don't have as much time as we might think.
Yep.
So I think in my early 20s, you just go about the motions, right? Of life. You go through school, you go through your first job, you go through your certain relationships and stuff.
And can I even interject and say even earlier than that? I feel like
Earlier than that, for
Right?
sure. Like your whole life, right?
Yeah.
I feel like you're going through the motions
Yeah.
and you're put into certain scenarios or certain situation that you didn't have full control over. As you get older, now you start deciding what you have control over.
Right.
So now once you approach your later 20s, you have almost full control over what you decide to do and how you spend your time. And I know, at least in the space that I am and the content that I consume, like I know a lot of people talk about like the fear of missing out on chasing their dreams and like, so it's a battle, right? And I remember in the last episode, I think we touched a bit on patience and
Yes.
getting older, like
Yes.
how the two conflict.
Yes, that's
so
right.
yeah,
Yes.
so that's really what comes to my mind. I don't know about you when it comes to like what jumps out at you when you think about, oh wow, I'm getting older, like what that feeling was like when you realized, oh, I'm getting older, because something must have happened for you to be like, oh wow, okay, yeah, time is going by.
Yeah, and I think for me it's twofold. So I totally agree with you with, you realize you've got limited time and we have more autonomy, right? And even more like money, right? As you've been in the job market for longer and things like that. So we don't have to rely on others and we have full control. And I had seen something on, I think it was Instagram like months ago, and it was all around like, we don't realize, but like I live with my boyfriend now, you live alone, right? So we don't
Yeah.
live with like our parents. So we have a limited number of times that we are going to see our family, right?
Yeah.
Like we don't see them every day. I mean, I don't see my family every day, right? Just with my daily commitments.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I'm like, oh my God, like I'm not the only one getting older as time goes by. So are my parents. So are my,
I love that you
so
said that. Like
yeah.
that's a big one. I think like the fact that you're at an age where you realize your
That's
parents
right.
are getting older.
That's right.
And I
Exactly.
think this year was that for me, realizing
Exactly.
that, oh, okay, my parents might be slowing down in
Yep.
what they've been doing.
Yep.
And I've always seen my parents as like invincible.
That's right.
Like they're always gonna be, it felt like they're always gonna be here. They're always gonna be like healthy and mobile, and like that's how it felt like. And then you start realizing that, oh, I'm getting older. They must be getting older as well, right?
Exactly.
So on that, on what you're saying, is just like I realized that, wow, life is really about spending the time with the people you like. You know, like it doesn't need to be more complicated than that.
Exactly.
Like doing the stuff that you want to do and being surrounded by the people you love. I think that you can't go wrong if that's what you follow, right? Obviously relationships get complicated,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's a good one that you bring up.
So it's interesting. And that's one thing that kind of hit me is like, okay, yeah, like time doesn't slow down for anyone,
No.
you know, we're not like, invincible, to your point, to that part, right? Like it's part of life for everyone. The other thing, I don't want this to come off cocky at all. Okay. So please, like that's not what it, like
No,
the
dude,
intent. Okay. But
go off.
go with me and see if like you understand a little bit where
Yeah.
I'm going. So, as I've mentioned, I think, I had a career in the music industry, and I started very young. Like I think it was like 15 when I started. And I mean, I think, like I was a go-getter, and like
for
I've accomplished a lot of things at that age.
100%.
And one of the comments that kept coming back was, oh my God, like, I can't believe you did that. You were only 15. I can't believe you did that. You were only 16. You know, like people were like impressed of the things that I was able to accomplish at a young age.
It is impressive.
But now it's like, as I get older, I'm like, I feel like those same things, if I were to do them now, they're not as impressive.
Why?
Do you know what I mean? Well, because like I'm older. So like, I'm not like, I think like it was impressive that I was so young and I was doing these things. Like, for example, like booking like meetings with like these big VPs in like the music industry, or like getting an artist song on the radio and like getting him in a magazine and things like that. Like at 16 doing that versus in my late 20s doing that, I feel like there's a different perspective of it. Do you know what I mean?
I understand that for sure. Like there's different perspective. I'm just gonna say that like I don't think the average person is doing that.
Well, that's it.
You know what I mean? Like
exactly.
If you would ask me, Jake, go put a song on the radio, I'd be like, what? What am I supposed to do? Like, what are you talking about?
The first step.
Yeah, what are you talking about, right? So it's like, of course it's impressive. Like you mastered your craft, no matter what age you're at, right? Mastering a craft is impressive. Like it takes dedication. Like whether you were 15 or 28, let's say you put that same dedication that you put in at 15, you put in at 28, like that's impressive, right? I think that the hardest thing for people is to be consistent and to like really put in the work to master something.
That's true.
So at any age, that's impressive. And I think as you get older, when I actually posted a reel about that this week about, I felt like the people sometimes when you get older, the people around you start giving up on their dreams.
Yes.
So if I see someone chasing their dreams as they get older, I think that's more impressive than when you're young. When you're young, you have no responsibilities. You think of nothing. you have no when you're young, you have no fear.
Yeah. That's right.
You don't understand 100%. What society is. You don't understand the expectations your parents have of you, what things are. True. So I remember when I was, let's say, doing YouTube at full force in my, like at 19, I didn't think twice about posting videos. I didn't think anything. I was just doing it because it was fun. Yeah. Right. So if I see you doing that at our age, at getting older, and at any age, I'm like, wow, that's amazing.
I actually really like that perspective.
I
never thought of it in that way. But it's true. It's true. Like as you continue going, and it's also about persistence, right? Like doing something for so much time without like, let's say, giving up on it, which is difficult.
That is hard. I truly think that's the biggest thing that stops people from achieving their dreams or what they want to do, or actually even the life they want to live. Is it just takes patience, which is what we were saying about how it conflicts with getting older. It's like you realize that there's not that much time, but you're like, I also have to be patient to get to where I want to go. Yeah. Or to be around the people I want to be around, or to have the things that I want to have. And it's like the way I started reframing it, because it was causing me a lot of stress to be like, oh, wow, I have to wait for these things. Like I've never been good with being patient, but it's
same.
What I realized is like, how else would I rather spend my time?
That's right.
When I said about mitigate regret, I rather just try and maybe not achieve or not get to where I want to get, or maybe it might take longer. It might take 2, 5, 10 years, who knows? But at least I know that I gave it a shot.
Yep.
Right?
And a full shot.
Exactly.
Not just a shot.
Exactly.
You really gave it your all.
Yeah, because you can't say, that you really tried if you know you're not putting in as much effort as you could be.
That's true.
And when I say this, I know it might sound as if I'm talking about like, I don't know, businesses or like projects and stuff. It's just in everyday life. Let's say you tell me, I really envision myself having a lot of friends,
Okay.
or having more friends or more people around me. And you're doing nothing around putting yourself in situations to meet new people. And then I guess socializing is just not for me. Or like, I guess as we get older, we just don't socialize.
Yeah.
Well, yes and no, right? Like, are you giving it your all to actually put yourself in those uncomfortable situations to meet new people?
That's a good point.
You know? So I think this applies to everything. And I really try to make it clear, because I don't want it to apply about like just business or like projects and stuff, because not everyone really values that either.
No, exactly. And I think it doesn't need to be just about that.
Mm-hmm.
It really applies to every sphere. I mean, I spoken about it in multiple of the episodes, but about my weight loss journey. Like that's a self thing, right? It has nothing to do with business, has nothing to do with being professional or in my professional life. It's a self thing. But it takes patience to see the results. That's how you get, sustained results, is when you've got longevity to it, right?
100%.
Like, and that's the thing. It's like, you can't just expect something to happen right away. And I got 2 years older throughout the process, but I feel like
time was going to pass anyways.
Yeah, time was going to pass anyway. So at least I was working towards something that I was hoping to achieve. So
that is, I think if you asked most people what do they struggle with the most, I think it'd be like consistency. I think it's
tough.
It's hard. It's hard because we're validated by results, right?
Yeah.
Like when let's say you try to work out, right? And you don't see the results. It's not encouraging to you to be like, okay, let me just trust the process and eventually I'll get somewhere, right? Like especially when it comes to working out, like the beginning sucks. Like
for sure.
You're everything hurts, like you're tired, like you don't see any results, but then when you start seeing that first bit of results, it could be obviously at different milestones for people, but at least for me, I get addicted. But
100%.
You can't wait for that to just say like, oh, like I'm gonna keep doing it.
Exactly. And I think another point to that is we have so many distractions in the world we live in today, right? So like,
oh man,
I try not to do this, but let's say I'm gonna go do a workout, right? But then I'm on my phone and someone texts me and I decide to reply, or then I'm just about to start my workout and someone calls me and it's like, 2 hours later, still didn't do my workout, right? So it's difficult to be consistent when you've got all these distractions. You know what I mean? You really have to focus when you want to accomplish something.
So what's your biggest distraction, like from that you can think of right now? The when you're like doing something and you're like, I feel like in my everyday life, this distracts me a lot.
My phone. My phone. And I would bet money that 99% of people would answer the same thing. But I am trying to really, really
it's hard.
Focus on mitigating that distraction.
It's tough.
It's so tough.
Yeah.
But I'm reading a book now called Stolen Focus by...
What is it, your 60-second book?
60 seconds. No. Listen, I don't have the number. I think I'm still in my 20s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm still in my 20s.
Oh, no, it's true. Sorry. Yeah, you said you read 20 books in 6 months.
Yes, exactly. That's right.
Yeah.
But I will get to 60 something by the end of the year.
I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that.
I think the author's name, oh my goodness, we'll have to put it in the notes, but Johann Hari, I'm pretty sure is his name. And the book is all about the things that distract us in life. And even the environment we live in is distracting. There's so many different...
That's a good one.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man.
And he was saying how he went to a retreat, like for 3 months, I believe it was, and he left his cell phone like away, and he went to this place and whatever. And though it was great, and he didn't have his phone, and when he came back into the real world, quote unquote, everything was the same. Because he also said like, I could stop using my phone, but then nothing else around me has changed.
Ooh.
So I thought that was very interesting. So anyways, I don't want to deviate too much on the topic of
but
getting
on that,
older.
like, that's a good one. But yeah, I guess we could dive more into it. But like definitely like maybe in another episode describe like the environment that I moved into.
Yes.
Because that impacts like a lot of like my workflow and like how I go about my life.
Amazing. Love it.
But one thing I wanted to talk about getting older was that, when we look back on our lives as we get older, we start realizing a lot of things that we did, right? Like we start learning from certain experiences that you've had.
Totally.
And you try not to, let's say replicate certain things you've done that don't serve you anymore. But I think on that topic of learning from the past, I think getting older comes with a lot of unlearning.
Ooh, I like where you're going with this.
And for me, it was like unlearning a lot of like certain habits that don't serve me anymore
Yeah.
as an adult and
Yep.
as I get older and as I enter new areas of my life, as I honestly keep changing who I am and evolve. And like,
Amazing.
you know, as you get older, like you're going to be faced with different situations. You're going to move, you know, you're going to change jobs, you're going to change where you live, you're going to change who you date, who you see, who are your friends. Like there's so many things that are going to change.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, I think comes with unlearning a lot of things about yourself.
And things that maybe you didn't even create a habit because you wanted to, but because a parent had you create that, right?
For
Because
sure, yeah.
when you're young, you're reliant on
Exactly.
others. Let's face it, right?
Like the environment you grow up in really shapes who you are, especially as a young adult. And like, if you're only exposed to certain things, like that's all you see. Like for me, I was only exposed to entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Like everyone around me is an entrepreneur. Everyone I know has a business. So for me, when I was like deciding at crossroads, okay, what do I study? Went into business, right? Like everyone I knew was in business. So to me, that's what I knew. So I went in there. Then as you get older, you're like, oh, okay, but maybe I want to explore something else, or maybe I want to do things. But then you get character traits from the things you've studied, from the people you were around. And then you realize as you change environments, oh, okay, this certain habit or this certain way of thinking doesn't serve me anymore. It's like, and that's a hard thing to do because you realize that like that involves a lot of change.
Absolutely.
You know, like you have to not change your identity, but really like changing the way you view situations, your perspective on life, your perspective on basically everything.
And change requires work.
Oh,
You're
it's
not
hard.
just going to change with the snap of a finger.
I mean, that'd be cool, but
Right?
like,
If only.
that'd be cool, but like, no, exactly. Like, it takes a lot of work and a lot of like, you know, introspection. You have to, I think, go through the ups and downs, which are the hardest part. I think in that first episode when you talked about the heartbeat, I think was it the first episode?
First or second, yeah.
Yeah, when we talked about linear.
Yes.
And it's never linear, right? Like 100%. You go up, you go down. Sometimes you go one step back to take two steps forward.
Yes,
like that's what my life has been like for the past like few months, at least for the beginning of this year, like for the 6 months of this year. It's just like realizing that, oh, okay, like there's a lot of things that I need to unlearn from who I was before as I enter new situations. So I don't know what that if that speaks to you or like what do you think about that? But
100%. And I never realized it like in this context, but yes. And I think a really good example of this is, you know, I moved in with my boyfriend like a year and a half ago at this point, and there's a lot of things that I've had to unlearn from living with my parents and my sister, right? Like living with parents and a sister who, you know, you kind of take them for granted in a certain sense. They're your family, right? You can be a certain way, whatever, it doesn't matter. But then when you move in with a partner, well, that partner can decide to say, you know what, peace. If they don't like the way you are, if things are, you know, if you're having lots of difficulty, basically they can leave whenever they want. It's harder for a parent to do that. Parents do it, right? And they go estranged from their kids, but it's kind of like you feel like you take them more for granted. So I'm like someone in life who's impulsive a lot, you know, when it comes to certain things, not in work, but I'd say like outside of work, I can be pretty impulsive with like a reaction to something or whatnot. And that always like how do you say, like it flew when I was at home with my parents. Like it was acceptable, let's say, is maybe the word, you know, and like even if it wasn't necessarily right or the right way, I never got like reprimanded. I don't know if reprimanded's like you know what I mean? Like I never got like put in my place because of it, right? But now that I live with my boyfriend and like I'm being like impulsive in certain situations, he's like, yo, chill. Like, no, like I will not tolerate this. I need to learn, unlearn how to not be impulsive. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
totally.
I'm an impulsive person with certain reactions, and I need to unlearn that now because of the environment I'm in. And don't get me wrong, like it's a good thing I have to unlearn. I'm not like, I'm not mad that I need to unlearn this. Like it's, you know, it's triggered this, the environment I'm in has triggered the fact that, whoa, okay, this is not an optimal way to be. So I need to unlearn it, but it's very difficult. And honestly, like, and we talk about being vulnerable on this podcast. I don't know how to unlearn it. Like I've tried different things. I've tried to read books. I've tried to, you know, I've consulted in the past. Like, I'm I don't know what to do. So it's very difficult when you need to try to unlearn something. I'd be curious to know if you have any tips or that you could share about how, if you've been successful in learning things, how you've done that.
I mean, that's a good one, because it's like you're talking about unlearning something that's like that's how you've been forever, right?
That's right.
Like
That's right.
So I think the best thing I can do is like to not. The best advice I can give people is don't put too much pressure on yourself to like, I need to unlearn this because this has ruined my life, or this is, I can't be like this, or I'm or like a lot of people will say like I'm unlovable the way I am. Right. So it's just to come, like, it ties into the concept of patience. Of patience.
Like, it goes back to that. Unfortunately, I'm not patient.
Yeah, like you really have to be patient. And like I said, there's ups and downs. Like yesterday I had a terrible day. Like, and you know, and I preach a lot to the people I talk to about like being positive and all, and like, oh, like, you know, taking charge of your life and things, taking charge of your emotions, of your mental, like, but I'm still human. I still have bad days, right? So I could get really down on myself. Oh man, like I should be somewhere else right now. I shouldn't be having bad days, or I shouldn't be, you know, like that's just normal. So you can't expect to unlearn behaviors from who you've been since you're a kid, almost, you know, in your later 20s, thinking that it's going to change overnight. Even if you're put in a situation with your boyfriend about like, okay, now he's telling me to chill out, I need to chill out. Like those are all situations that you can use as reference. Oh, okay, now I was in that situation. I was using what I was, my regular behaviors from the past. That didn't serve me. Now you can learn from those new situations to unlearn behaviors. So it always comes back to unlearning and learning, right? As you unlearn, you're learning new things.
Oh, yes.
Right?
I like that. Yeah.
So it's, I think the best thing is to like reduce the amount of pressure you put on yourself.
It's interesting because I do put a lot of pressure on myself, right? Because I don't like being like that. Like, right? Like if someone else, like I'm acting in a certain way that someone's like, yo, stop. You know what I mean? Like, but so I don't like being in that position where someone else is telling me to stop being a certain way. But I agree with them.
Yeah,
right?
if you agree, because someone else could have a different perspective of you.
Exactly.
You shouldn't be this way, but you're like, but I like being this way.
That's right. And then that's a totally different story, thing. Right? So let's not, like, I don't want anyone listening to get that twisted, right? Like you should not, anyways, in my opinion, you should be yourself, whether people like you or not. You know what I mean? But in this case, it's like, someone's telling me they don't like something and I'm like, yeah, I don't like it either. You know what I mean? You're
like, but I think on that about realizing that, okay, there's not much pressure to like unlearn certain things really fast. But also I think a lot of people realize that like, oh, I think that I'm unlovable the way that I am with these behaviors, right? Okay. But it's like you're acting based off what you know.
Yeah, right.
That's all you knew.
That's right.
Your whole life.
That's right.
Is X situation happened, react this way. X situation happened, react that way.
Yeah.
So you can't be like, oh, I don't understand. I'm not like, I want to unlearn this, but it's hard. But it's like, yeah, it's normal.
It's a good point, actually.
That's the environment you grew up in shaped you this. But the fact that you know you want to change it is already a win to me.
Okay, good. I'm going to tell him that next time.
You know, it's already a win because everyone could do something to improve on certain things,
That's
right?
True. No one's
but
perfect.
Is there... For me, it's just seeing in someone else or in myself, is there the will to like change that thing?
The effort that you want to put into it.
Right. It's all about the effort you want to put into it. So I think there's like the concept of patience and getting older. Like I said, they'll always conflict.
Yeah.
Always conflict.
Yeah.
Every time you want to make a change, you get older, right? You realize that, oh, there's certain things that are going to be different about every aspect of your life. And everything requires time. So it's just a matter of what you do with that time.
I like that.
You know, because time's going to pass anyways. Like you said, you're like, oh, my fitness journey, 2 years passed. But 2 years were going to pass anyways, whether you did something or you didn't.
What's the quote? Oh my goodness. I put it on, by the way, H. Jacob's World. I put it on one of the comments on your videos.
Oh, which reel?
What was it? About time. And it's like 1 year from now, you'll be wishing you had started today.
Oh, yes,
right?
yes.
So it's like, it's true. Like a year into my fitness journey, I was like, damn, I am so happy I started this a year ago. So to your point about it's about what you do with that time, because time is going to go by regardless.
Yeah.
You know, so that's an interesting point. And I think the other thing too on getting older is like we become wiser, right? I mean,
that's the goal.
right? That's the goal.
I hope that's the goal.
But with more experiences, you know, like you've gone through more. So to your point, like you know more who you want to be, I think also, right? Because you're more independent.
Well, I think you know that only if you take the time to reflect.
Okay.
Because I feel like not everyone might take the time that you need to actually like reflect on your life and reflect on situations. Like, at least for me, let's say example, when it comes to like dating and stuff. Like I've always been the type to really stay by myself, like really alone.
Okay.
For a long time not a long time, but like for a decent amount of time.
Yeah.
To really learn from those experiences.
So you're saying if you're in a relationship and then you go out of a relationship, you don't go searching right away. You take that time to reflect on your previous relationship.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like that, I think to me, that's like the only way, at least what works for me, like to really learn from those experiences. Like, okay, like who was I in that relationship? What role did I have in like creating that life that just happened?
Yeah.
You know, like now I'm at a point where you're like, okay, I want a new life. I want something else. There's a lot of things that who I was before that don't serve me anymore. There's a lot of things that I want to change, a lot of behaviors that I don't want to reproduce.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, let me take the time to really go through them. And the process, like I said, it's up and down.
Yep.
It's not always I'm going to change my life. I'm doing great. You know, like, no, it sucks. A lot of times it sucks. Right. But that's, I think, how you get to that next level.
Totally.
How you get to really realize a lot of things about who you want to be, what you want to do. Because if you just go through the motions, like it's easy to miss the mark.
Yeah.
It's easy to miss your mark. And I always say this to myself every day. I'm like, find your why.
Find your why. I like that.
Find your why. Like you're going to realize that a lot of the things that you thought were going to bring you happiness as a kid aren't the same when you get older.
That's a very
And what I think was going to bring me happiness today might be different next year, might be different in 2 years. You know what I mean? So I think every single day it's a question I try to ask myself as I get older. Find your why.
I really like that. And I've lived it, you know, and I think in a previous episode on happiness, you asked me like, what makes you happy? And I was like, honestly, just reading a book, like having time to myself, or going for a walk, like the simple stuff. Had you asked me that question 5 years ago, I guarantee you that would not have been the answer. I can't even tell you what the answer would have been. But to your point about how things change and finding your why and what's your purpose, that's gonna change as you get older and as you're in different environments too.
100%. But like you said, different environments come with different influence.
Yes.
Right. So I think that if I look back at my younger 20s, I thought that happiness came from like money, came from like achieving money, achieving status, achieving something. Like you look at everyone and it's like, oh, what do you do as work? What do you do as this? How much money do you have? How much is it? What do you drive? What do you this? Right. So as a young kid, you're programmed to be like, oh, okay, that's what's going to make me happy.
Right.
As you get older and as you unlearn certain behaviors, certain things, certain perspectives, you realize that, okay, actually what I value now is the simple things of life, spending time with the people I care about, and every day doing something towards my why.
I love that.
Right? It doesn't get more complicated than that. And if you do that, I'm not saying it's easy, right? I'm not saying
no, it's not.
You and finding your why also might take time. Yep. Like my why today was different than my why yesterday. So it's like if you constantly are thinking about it, you might get somewhere.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? And I can't say I was actually thinking about it like previously in my life.
Me neither.
You know what I mean?
I had different priorities. I was like, whatever. Like I was not in this mindset at all, you know? And I think that's why we connected so much more now too, right? And decided to start this podcast. Like we're on the same wavelength now. Yeah. But I certainly was not there 5 years ago. Not even
but that's normal.
2 years ago, you know?
That's normal. And it's not to be like, oh, I wish I was there. Because that's hindsight, right?
That's right.
Life is so easy in hindsight to look back on your life. Oh, because now you know what happened.
Exactly.
So like, I wish I would have done this.
Yeah.
You know the lottery numbers now.
Yeah, that's it.
I should have known the lottery.
Picked those numbers.
Exactly. I'd be at a different place in my life, right?
Exactly.
So life is the same thing. Like you can't look at your life in hindsight.
Totally.
Now everything makes sense.
Well, you look at it in hindsight to reflect.
To reflect.
In hindsight to reflect on it.
But I think I was guilty of that, like the blame game, being like, Jake, like, come on, man, like, why'd you do this? Or like, why'd you now, like, you know, you kind of beat yourself up for certain things. You're like, why did it take me so long to realize this? Or why didn't it take me so long to do this or do that? Or like take this for granted and like, you know, things like that. So it's good to look back and reflect, but there's a fine line between reflecting and like blaming yourself. And, you know, I think that's it's easy to fall in that trap, like the negativity bias, right?
Yep.
It's easy. You there's 99 things that went right. You're gonna still find that one thing that went wrong and focus on that one thing, right? So getting older is, I think getting older is just that, right? Like
getting older.
Getting
older is getting older.
Getting older. It's
moral of the story.
It's like, honestly, I think it's what you make of it.
Yeah.
You know, it could suck, like it could be the best years of your life.
That's right. Exactly.
You know, because now you're entering new chapters of your life with new perspective, with experience, with a lot of, like I said, a lot of learnings, you know, a lot of things that you've learned, and like it could be a great thing.
Exactly.
And I know a lot of people fear getting older.
Yeah. But we can look at it positively and make it to our advantage, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, well, on that note, I think that was a great episode.
That was a packed episode.
Lots of really good wisdom here. Hopefully, you guys can take some of it. But I definitely feel more positive about getting older. Yeah,
me too. Honestly, like the more you talk about it, because sometimes that voice in my head tells me like, oh, we're getting older, and it's like more in a negative light. And now when I discuss with you about it, or I discuss with people, it's like, oh, okay, no, like it could be amazing.
Totally.
You know?
100%. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Make sure to follow us on socials. It's Just a Draft. And we'll see you next time.
See ya.
Bye.